Okay, we're in. We're in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a juicy Friday afternoon masterclass. Emma's watching live. She says, I'm excited for this. And you ought to be. You ought to be. I see Ray Ray. Hello. I see Hanan. I'm actually not letting anyone into the private Zoom. Hanan said, can I get the Zoom link? I'm just going to leave it on Facebook. So we're streaming from Zoom today only because apparently my voice sounds like someone reading a book in German. And every single time that I go live on Facebook, I get hit with copyright. So we just wanted a clean copy of the recording so that we can upload it other places, but I'm not letting anyone into the Zoom room. So apologies for that. Ray Ray says, I love that color on you. New shirt. Got it on Mackinac Island. Okay. So I want to whip into this masterclass and I want to set a little bit of a context for the whole situation here before I go live with the entire thing. What we've got together is 3 days, today, tomorrow, and Sunday. 3 days of full-blown wealth energetics masterclass vibes. The reason that I do this is because my own wealth journey actually started watching a ton of free content. And it was a mixture between watching free resources like this one and finding mentors that I felt super crystal clear aligned with and deciding to walk with them. And to this day, I still watch free content and mix it with things that are from my mentors who are paid. And so I believe in something called equitable pricing. I'm going to teach you some vocabulary words these next 3 days. So equitable pricing basically means that I believe in giving people resources and ways to get started at every price point, including free. And because my own wealth journey began with a lot of free content that I treated like I was paying for it, I believe that I attract to me people who are the same. I believe that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other women who are just like me, who are wealth-minded and who are radically committed to becoming rich. And they're available to start at every price point, including free. So if you appreciate that, the free vibes, the all different price vibes, I want you to write equitable pricing. And I would invite you to bring this into your own brand. So every single month, I do drop a free masterclass. They're typically anywhere from 2 days to 5 days a month inside of this space. This is a group that people are known for joining and going back and binge watching content all the way back to the beginning. We recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of this group, and there's a masterclass for pretty much every single month. So if you wanted a place to come in and tap in and have motivational content that's completely free, there's a guide section that has a ton of content in it that you can tap any day of the year. There's lots of masterclasses in here. Okay. But this masterclass is a little bit different. So whereas all of my previous masterclasses leading up to this, they are created for all women. All women. This masterclass is kind of exclusive. It's free, but it's exclusive because it's not for everyone's mind. As you create your brand and your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to find that there's things that you say that you might say for free, but they're exclusive to a certain type of mind. So I'm going to give you the exclusivity bomb. Today, tomorrow, and Sunday, I'm going to be having a deep conversation on wealth energetics. The things that, in my opinion, women of 2022 and 2023 have to understand to sustainably create wealth. And today's training, and especially tomorrow's, and especially Sundays, they are not made for you if you are not committed to becoming rich. So if you are not someone who is called to be wealthy, this is not going to be the training for you. But there are women here in this space that are drawn to me because my human design is a 5-1 Manny-Gen. And I am created to guide and activate people. And one of the reasons that many women are drawn to me is because I fearlessly, boldly, loudly talk about wealth. And if it pushes your buttons, I want to teach you something about frequency really quick. If other people talking about their wealth does anything negative inside of you, you're created for wealth. Let me explain. I have an entire training on this coming up, a live course called Rev Chill, which is followed up by Iconic, where I go deep dive on emotions and energetics, but I'm going to give you a snippet of it right here. What you want wants you back. If you deeply know that you are made to be wealthy, that you have a desire to be rich in this lifetime, what you want wants you back. And if it's your destiny, I love you, Ashley. Thanks, Tina. What you want wants you back. So if your destiny is calling you to become rich and wealthy in this lifetime, it's going to keep on taking you until you do something about it. So when you see people like me and my peers and people who are on a wealth trajectory talking about it online, and it does something inside of you that freaks you out a little bit, whether it makes you jealous, whether you want to not engage with them anymore, whether you want to hit the block button, whether you unfollow, whether it gives you stress and you go, well, how come she's so far ahead of me? I could do that too. How come it's not happening for me? If that happens inside of you, it is a sign you're meant to have it, be it, and do it. The wealth wants you back. The riches want you too. If it wasn't meant for you, these messages would not show up from you or for you frequency wise. If you weren't made for money, you wouldn't have wealth consciousness to begin with. I'm going to teach you guys a lot in the next 3 days, but the first thing that I want to do is I want to invite you right now to affirm something in the comment section. So if you're watching live and you're able to type, can you write, I am increasing my wealth consciousness. I am increasing my wealth consciousness. I am increasing my wealth consciousness. If you weren't made for wealth and the wealth didn't want you back, and you were not on the frequency of wealth and riches and abundance, none of these messages would even show up on your radar emotionally. If it wasn't your destiny, you wouldn't even be in this conversation. Riches and wealth are making themselves known to you because they want you back. When you're being triggered in the online space, seeing people who are successful, and it does something inside of you and it makes you jealous, frustrated, activated. I want you to understand that's an activation because the wealth wants you to. If it didn't want you to, it wouldn't be showing up for you. You're made to have this. If it wasn't for you, none of this would be on your radar. So whether big money inspires you and calls to you and makes you feel greater, and when you see other women's success stories, it might give you the tickle that goes like, oh my gosh, I can have it too. If she can have it, I can have it. If she can have it, I can have it. She could do it, I can do it. It might be a positive tickle for you. And that's because you're on the same frequency as money. You have a wealth consciousness. You are on the frequency of cash. And if it shows up for you and it frustrates you, you are still on the frequency of cash. It's just activating you differently. If it wasn't made for you, it wouldn't even be on your radar. Someone just said, did you just reach through the phone and slap me? I love you. You guys are so funny. Oh, the giggles. Oh my God, I have thumb holes. I didn't know that. I just bought this shirt yesterday. No, 2 days ago. Yesterday. 2 days ago. I don't know when I bought it. Anyways. So when I first started noticing other women in the online space making a lot of money, it activated me. It frustrated me. The things that popped up for me sounded a little bit like this. Sometimes I would say, I'm actually better than her at what she's doing. So why am I not making money doing that? Prime example, I used to get really jealous when I would see people go viral on YouTube that made makeup tutorials because I am a celebrity makeup artist and I know more than they do and I am better at makeup than them. And these little cheesy people with like crappy makeup skills would be getting like millions of views for their dumb videos. And I'd be like, I am actually better at that than them. And I'm jealous because they are doing the thing. If I wasn't made to create that content, it never would have showed up for me. It wouldn't even bother me. See, because I don't feel that way when I watch a woodworking video. I'm like, oh, good for them. That's wonderful that they made woodworking videos. Not interested. But the activation holds a clue. The fact that I was frustrated, the fact that I was jealous, the fact that I was mad at them, and I was like, I could do that too. It's an activation. I am not on the frequency of woodworking, but I am on the frequency of making a lot of money from makeup videos. Okay. So if you're activated by people making money, it's because you're on the frequency of that. You're made for it. Okay. Here's another clue. Here's another clue. Okay. When I started seeing one of my peers, she's a peer and sometimes a mentor. Like she's a friend and I also pay her for classes. So I have a peer mentor who would really talk about money a lot. She talked about how much money she makes. She would talk about income wins, how many clients she had, how all these different things about money. And on the inside, I would panic for her. And I wanted her to stop talking about it. Not because I was mad at her, but I was like, girl, you need to stop talking about all that money. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get sued. You're going to lose clients. Your clients are going to cancel on you. If you talk about how much money you're making, people are going to feel like a number. Although I never felt like a number and I kept paying her. One day she was like, I'm about to cross 1 million. And I was like, what can I buy? I want to send you over the edge. Like, I want to be the one that makes you a millionaire. Like, but whenever she would talk about money, I would panic for her. I'd be like, oh my God, stop. You're going to get sued. Something bad is going to happen to you if you keep talking like that. People are going to leave you. Your clients are going to leave you. You're going to get robbed. If people know how much money you have, you better not tell anyone when you travel because your whole house is going to get robbed. Okay. So all my fears about money would come up when I watched this person that I love talk about her money. I got scared for her. Okay. None of that came up for me when I watched people win a baseball trophy and talk about how many home runs their kids hits. I'm like, I'm not on the radar of baseball. I don't care about baseball. You got a bazillion trophies in your house of baseball. Who cares about baseball? Okay. I was not on the frequency of baseball. None of that triggered me. None of that activated me. But when I watched a woman making a lot of money and talking about it, all my fears came up on her behalf. Because I'm on the frequency of money. I wouldn't fear for someone else if I didn't have that fear for myself. You see? What you're afraid of other people having happen to them bad is your own fear for yourself. And if you've got activations happening about watching women talk about money or how successful they are, it's because you are on the frequency of wealth and you're made for it. And it's your own fear talking for you. Pay really big attention to this stuff. So when I finally had the opportunity to chat with my friend, also a mentor, about this, I said, you know what? Whenever you would talk about money, I would get really scared. And when you encourage me to talk about money, I get really scared that someone's going to sue me. And she would say, that's your own fear. I'm not afraid for that. That's because you've got some funny money stuff going on, girlfriend. You need to shore up whatever you've got as far as funny money energy and clean it up fast so that you can talk about money too. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, is there any doubt in your mind that your corporations are set up well, your money is safe, you're airtight for being sued? Like, is there any lingering stuff that you're not taking care of as it pertains to your money? And I said, well, yeah, there's like, on my counter, sometimes I'll leave bills or whatever. I don't feel like opening them because I don't want to pay it. And she's like, yep. So address the funny money stuff ASAP. And so we reorganized the way that our corporations were set up. And I got tighter with my taxes and I got tighter with talking to my wealth advisor. And I got a lot better at saving. And there are no past due bills ever in my world anymore. But this conversation 2 years ago was activating for me. So I want to say to you that there's a reason that you're here today. If this class that I very clearly said is made for people who are committed to getting rich, and it's not made for you if you're not committed to getting rich, if even that activated you, good. But the mere fact that you're here watching this right now means that you are on the frequency of wealth accumulation. So if you're live, would you please write, I am on the frequency of wealth accumulation. So whether it bothers you, whether it triggers you, whether it activates you, or whether it inspires you to have a conversation for 3 straight days about wealth, any way you want to roll it, if it's on your radar, you're made for this. But I want to talk about some stuff that is wonky. Wonkity wonk wonk. Wonky wonk wonk wonky funny money. Okay. Because a lot of years I spent having some funny money. The energetics were not the vibe. Okay. And I want to talk about those things the next 3 days. Today, I first want to talk about wealth consciousness. Wealth consciousness. Tomorrow, I want to talk about wealth energetics. And on day 3, I want to talk about wealth accumulation. If you have a friend who you think needs to be here, you better invite him. We're also doing a giveaway after the final day of $1,111 in mentorship money for those who share about this space, for those who share the graphic into their stories or onto their timelines and tag me. I'm serious about this message getting out there, but it's only made for people who are committed to getting rich. So if becoming wealthy in this lifetime doesn't appeal to you, this is not going to be the masterclass. If you're not committed to getting rich in this lifetime, this is not going to be the month for you. But if you are, today and tomorrow and Sunday, this is the chat. Okay. So I'm going to wet my whistle, as Grandma June says. Let me know who's already shared the graphic. Have you shared the graphic? Did you find the graphic? Got to fill up because I'm about to trigger the hell out of you. Oops, I'm trying not to swear. This is probably for the rest of my life going to be something that I work on, is trying not to swear, because my last masterclass was pretty sweary, but okay. I'm going to activate the living daylights out of you. Ready? I'm obsessed with opulence. Opulence. On my hands, I am wearing 69 blue diamonds. My wedding rings cost as much as a lot of people's cars. I'm obsessed with the ability to do things like buy a $100 plus pink shirt because I like it. The more something costs, the more it turns me on. I want to say something really crass right now. Fuck it. Money makes my pussy throb. Yes, it does. Yeah, 69 blue diamonds. I'm just gonna activate you. We just decided to do something in terms of wealth consciousness. So for my husband's birthday and for my birthday, we usually take like a week off and go do something. Before we had kids, I used to take my husband to Europe and we'd have crepes on his birthday in Europe. That was cool. And now that we have kids and I don't want to go to Europe for a birthday, we did something like, we planned at the top of the year, we planned to go to Mackinac Island for his birthday. I'm going to say something cool. We stayed at a hotel that is designer. A designer hotel. There are only 11 like it in the entire world. This particular hotel has one of the world's longest porches. And the entire interior was decorated by a designer named Carlton Varney. Now, if you are in the millionaire's desk and you heard the last training on color theory of wealth, this hotel, when you walk in, you're like, oh, no wonder. From the feng shui to the decoration of it, the design, the color, everything about it, the layout, it's full of colors that attract money. They're everywhere. And to stay there is approximately $500 plus per person per night. They don't even have a standard hotel rate. It's not like, oh, when you rent like a suite or whatever, it's like $1,000 a night, or like, a standard hotel room. You go to book your vacation and it's like, oh, I don't know, $250 to get your room per night or whatever, like a standard hotel room. Okay, no, not this. They charge per person per night. Our stay there for 3 days was like $5,555 or some ridiculous number, plus room charges, because obviously we wanted stuff. The experience from top to bottom felt gift wrapped. When you walk into the space, the way that Carlton Barney's color theory goes is that it's over the top, period, point blank. There's relics from around the world in the hotel rooms, which is wild. There's art collections, which, if you understand currency, there's different ways that you can hold money, and art is one of the most viable assets for holding money. And art collections from around the world end up in this hotel. There's art in the rooms. We stayed in a suite that had literally like period art in it. Like antiquities from other places on the planet, not United States. Books that were hand dedicated to the owners of the hotel. The opulence was next level. Irreplaceable items in each room. You could feel the energetics from in the walls. Walking through this hotel, you can feel the wealth. That is opulence. When you can sit in a space and know that the conversations that have happened within this suite are multi-million and billion-dollar conversations, and the energetics are in the walls, that is opulence. In my opinion, sustainably creating wealth year after year after year after year requires you to increase your wealth consciousness and become part of places like this. You're invited. If money calls to you, you're meant to go places like that. So we chose at the beginning of the year to go to a place that I didn't know. I didn't know if it was going to be $3,000 a night, $5,000 a night. There was an option to stay at a place that was more like $3,500 a night, and I actually preferred the interior of what we stayed in a little bit better. But I was prepared to spend $10,000 to go hang out for a week or less, more like 3-4 days. Got there Sunday, left Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. And I did it for the opulence. If you are available to type right now, can you please write, I'll do it for the opulence. I like having expensive things around me because there's a wealth calibration available via opulence. and my ability to stay in business, to stay committed, my sustainability in accumulating more and more and more and more and more wealth all the time has a direct link to opulence. And because of that, I am in direct opposition to budgeting. I am opposed to classic budgeting. I am opposed to debt elimination systems, and I will not bring that consciousness into my world. I am increasing my wealth consciousness. That's the name of the game for me. I tried budgeting for a long time and it did not increase my wealth accumulation. I always landed back at the same spot, which was in debt. I am opposed to that teaching. Ashley, you're so funny. She said, the budget. And I thought the more that I heard the message that you ought to budget and this idea that I really want to get into deeply tomorrow about, just grinding it out and, grind and work your face off for like a year. And when you look up, you'll be 5 years ahead, or intensely focus for 6 months, because at the end, you're going to be so much further ahead of people. And it's just like this striving feeling, like sacrifice now and have fun later. And I heard that message for a long time, and I tried it for a long time because it seemed like it was the loudest message in my world. And I had a lot of business debt. I had about $60,000 of business debt when I was learning this message that you should sacrifice. And I feel my body tightening even talking about this. But I realized that that's not even what I grew up with. My personal first wealth mentor was my stepdad. He was self-made. He was like 20 years older than my mom. So if you can imagine, my mom met him when I was in preschool, and he was 20 years older than her. So my mom was like early 30s, he was early 50s, and he was a bank executive. That's juicy. Executive. So he was a bank executive, self-made. So he did not come from money. He accumulated all of his wealth, self-made in his own lifetime. No money was passed from generation to generation. So he was completely self-made. It was all him. Okay. We moved in with him, which is a vibe. We moved into a mid-century modern with all of the fixings in this home. We were the house everybody wanted to be at. We had all the things that all the kids wanted growing up. And our house, our life was full of opulence. So my stepdad, he was a bank executive. So this is what was modeled to me as a kid growing up. We would wake up in the morning with my mom and go eat breakfast in our bougie kitchen, right? In our mid-century modern, which was full of art. Everyone write, art is opulence. Okay, full of art, which is inspiring, the frequency of beauty. It lands you into unification. Like art is everything. So we had a house full of art. We'd wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and my stepdad would come out of the bedroom, freshly shaven, wearing a suit every day. He wore, he wore the suit. He had his hair a certain way. Everything was a certain way. And he would come out and his shoes would click across the floor because he wore like dress shoes every day. He would have his briefcase in his hand. He'd get his thermos of coffee and his bag for his lunch, pop it in, and go to work. The man was walking opulence, dressed to the nines, to the hilt. He looked like class. He smelled even better. And he would drive to work and bank all day long. He was a charmer, well-spoken. We had a library that was full of dictionaries and like fine novels and things like that. Like our house was opulence. So he was well-spoken. He would use words that I didn't know. And I would say, Dad, what does that mean? And he would say, go to the den and look it up. Like he wouldn't even tell me. A lot of my vocabulary had to do with my stepdad speaking to me, speaking with me, teaching me. Everything about him was opulent. So he would, speak with his clients all day long. He had 2 secretaries. You would walk into the bank and there's green and gold and, everything was a certain way. 2 secretaries, art, gold statues on his desk. And he was self-made and he brought that work ethic home with him. It didn't stop at the office. Now, we had enough money really to hire whoever. We had landscapers, we had pool keepers, and I hope this is activating. If there's someone here who's like, I want that, good, let it activate you. We had maids, we had nannies, we had a lawn care team, the best in town. We had everything. But even though we had the money to pay for it, every weekend, pretty much, almost every weekend of the year, my stepdad would put us to work in the yard. I have photo evidence that I've been sharing of me as young as 5 working in the yard. That's the youngest I could find. I was either 4 or 5. I was going into 1st grade, so I'm assuming that was 5. I have photo evidence of my stepdad having us do the labor of a man, manual labor out in the yard on the weekends. And he was self-made. He had the money to outsource it. I'm certain from the outside, people probably thought that we were the spoiled kids in the neighborhood, but I want to tell you something because I want to show you as a preview for tomorrow that there's something about opulence that makes you wealthy. And I don't know whether it's the chicken or the egg, which comes first, and that's what makes me say, don't budget. Now, this is very next level training, so this is not for everyone. But if you know you're made to be rich, this is for you. Okay. So my stepdad had us out in the yard doing things like laying bricks, painting, landscaping, like next level stuff that men should do. Opening the pool, scrubbing the pool cover. Like we were doing the work of a man. And my stepdad would sit out there with us. And sometimes he would even lay on the ground to show us how to do something with fine detail, next level detail. And in my opinion, this is what's missing out of the feminine energetics movement. I'm going to talk deeply about masculine and feminine energetics tomorrow, because I think that there's 2 sides of a coin that you have to understand. You can't do one or the other. It's a both and for wealth. Okay. So my stepdad would lay on the ground in the heat of summer to show us detail work for concrete, for planting, whatever it was. And he would stay out there. If any of you have kids, you'll understand this. He would show us how to do something in fine detail, showing my brother and I as kids, and then he would stay there and watch us try it ourselves. In the cold, in the heat, in Michigan with neighbors watching, whatever it might be. My older sisters, my stepsisters told me that he did this with them too. And if they missed a pine cone, he would literally kick their ass underneath the tree. He never did that to me. He was a lot nicer, I think, because he was older. But he would literally kick them in the ass underneath the pine tree and be like, there's a pine cone still under there and you're not going anywhere until you get it. Detail. Detail. He would show us what to do and he would lean back and watch us try it. And it wasn't this thing of like, oh, I'm showing a kid how to work. And if they half-ass it, you know, I'll fix it. He would watch us work. And then he would come back and he would find detail and say, this is what you messed up. This could be done better. See, you missed this thing right here. Let's correct it. It was excruciating. There were days when I just wanted to go inside and just cry. I remember as a little kid, this is where my association was built with eating to relax. Because if I said I was hungry or I needed a snack or water, that was the only way that I got to go in the house on those days. But it bred something in me. I knew those days were going to be tough. I knew it was going to be frustrating. I knew I might feel like crying. And I knew that it was going to be detail. But listen to me. At the end of those days, this is what I think is lacking in the business world. And I think that this is why women are quitting in business left and right. This is what I think gives me staying power. This is what I think is working for me in all the ways. Okay. And I thank God because my stepdad was amazing. And I feel sorry for people who didn't have the next part that I'm about to say, because there's a lot of people who are parenting from a place of perfectionism and work and proving energy, and it's actually driving the work ethic out of their kids. And I think there's some people here that can relate to that. And this is where I make a case for opulence. Okay. Because you get to rewire this. You get to rewire this as a woman in business and as a woman who is accumulating wealth. You get to rewire it all, and only you get to do it. No one can do this for you. As an adult, you've got to change it. But this was what would happen next. At the end of the day, these incredible work days, I knew that at a certain time, the day was over and the projects were done. And my stepdad and my mom would go from detail work, excruciating, a lot of work fit for a man. So if you're watching, you can write, I am made for work fit for a man. Just write it. Just test it. Just test it. Because for you to become rich and for you to create wealth, there's going to be days that feel like it's work fit for a man. It's just a lot of work. It's going to feel like manual labor, even if it's only in your brain. Okay. At the end of these days, I knew that it was only going to be hard for so long before it got really good. When the work was done at the end of the day, opulence vibes kicked in. It was like we went from working in the yard and manual labor to the party of the century. And it happened every weekend. What happened next was we would walk over to that little telephone strapped to the wall in our kitchen, because it was the 90s and your phone was on the wall back then or on a receiver. And we'd pick up the phone and we'd dial our friends' numbers by heart, and our friends would come over. We could really have whoever could come over. It was like, I had my Christy, I had my Natalie, I had my cousins, like my friends could come over, okay, spend the night. And my stepdad and my mom would go to the moon for us. It was like, okay, we could order pizza, we could order Chinese, we could order, whatever we really wanted. We could go to the store and buy 5 cartons of ice cream. We had this guy called the Schwanzman. It was like a food delivery company. Does everyone know about the Schwanzman? There was like this man that used to drive through the wealthy neighborhoods and stop at people's houses, and you would like catalog order food. So there was like pizzas and ice creams and frozen treats and frozen cookies. And we had our own refrigerator and freezer in the basement that was stocked with sodas and Coke and all different types of beverages. And we had our own freezer just for the kids in the basement, the finished basement, which I'll tell you about in a hot second. Okay, so the Schwanzman, we had a whole freezer of Schwanzman food. And so our friends would come over and we had like 6 flavors of ice cream and the frozen cookies that we would just eat out of the box because they're really good while we played on 2 gaming systems, right? Frozen pizzas. But then also my stepdad would be like, okay, who's coming over? And if it was like another wealthy family, watch this. My stepdad, he loved to schmooze and he loved to entertain. So there was a certain girl in our town whose dad was also an old guy who was a realtor, and everyone knew that. So when she would come over, my stepdad would make steak and shrimp and lobster on the grill because, you know, he wanted that little girl to go home and tell her dad that we had steak and lobster on a Friday night at their friend's house. Okay, you see the vibes. So it was like no expense was spared in terms of entertaining, having fun. Okay. So at our house in the 90s, this is a whole big situation. We not only had the in-ground pool with the diving board and all the accoutrements, all the games, all the toys, all the things, but we also had a fire pit. And so we would have fires outside and we would grill and play in the pool. And if you can imagine, every time that there was a birthday party or an event, like all of our friends were over, we were the pool party house. We were the kids that everyone wanted to be at our house. And on summer nights, and when it would work out, we would sleep out on the trampoline under the stars. When it was Friday the 13th, my mom had crazy Friday the 13th parties at our house. And all of the kids from my private school class would come over and we watch horror movies all night and eat snacks from the freezer, right? My mom and my brother would come down and scare the shit out of us in the middle of the night. We had a finished basement that had a pool table, a 3-story Barbie house, like the 5-disc CD changer, 2 entertainment systems, 2 gaming systems, a workout room. Like we had everything. Our own exit from the downstairs up to outside where the pool was. Okay. We worked hard on these days. And at the end of working hard was opulence. My parents showed me that there's reward for work. And what I see is that when people train themselves to suffer, to work hard until, when they guilt themselves for spending or for receiving, or when they tell themselves, I'm not there yet, and so I can't reward myself, and it just permanently delay gratification until the day that they are, quote, debt-free or something. It literally strips the life out of your bones for success. What if my parents would have had me work like that every weekend, and at the end of the day, it was just like, you're done. Go color. Go to your room and color. Go watch TV. Good job. Good job working today. Go watch a show. Maybe when you finish the whole yard and the whole yard is perfectly landscaped as if a man did it, on that month, then we'll have a party. My desire would have been quenched. It would have been too impossible. This is what I see women in business doing with their brands, with their bodies, with themselves, with their budgets. They tell themselves, when I hit this mega milestone, I will. And I'm not saying to not celebrate the milestones. I'm here for celebrating the milestones all day long. Celebrate the milestones, but also give yourself opulence on the way there. It revives you. It revives your spirit. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, unwell. How well do you work when you're sick and unwell? When you're just waiting for someday when, you lose the motivation. It's not sustainable. This is what I see people doing in business. They tell themselves, I'm going to hustle really hard until, and then I'm going to celebrate. And by the time that you get to that point where you're finally good enough to be rewarded and you celebrate it, you're too freaking tired to even enjoy it. Okay, has anyone ever done this before? You work so hard to get to something, and then when it gets there, it feels like nothing. Like you cannot even enjoy it. You're just like, oh my God, this would be fun if I wasn't exhausted. For many years, I was basically told, like, hustle hard. And then when you have become debt free or become successful, you can buy whatever you want. It sucks the life out of you. So, opulence is like, I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but either way it comes, you have to have opulence, in my opinion, for sustainable success. Why? In my opinion, the more my wealth consciousness rises, the more money I stack. Putting yourself around opulence, indulgence, wealth, beauty, fun, it increases your wealth consciousness. I got to a place of making multi 7 figures in my brand. We're just under 3 million for as a brand. We made $1 million in sales from the day that my daughter was born until September maybe 1st. So she was less than 13 months old. I did $1 million in sales. I didn't get that way by focusing on budgeting, waiting, withholding, and cock blocking myself from enjoying my life. That's not how it happened. The money started stacking when I said yes to indulging in opulence. Now, there's a lot more to this that I have a responsibility to say tomorrow, because you could take one sentence that I said out of this and misconstrue the whole thing and misunderstand me. Because I think that there's a feminine energetics part of this that is like all indulgence, and it leads to brokety brokenness. And so there's a balance here. Notice that I said I did the work of a man and then opulence. And because of opulence, I woke up with opulence. I wake up to opulence, and I have the compelling desire to do the work of a man. And I do the work of the man, and it gives me opulence. And I have more and more opulence and opportunities around me, and I wake up to opulence, which gives me desire to do the work of a man. Listen to me. It's balance. But think back to when I was talking about this situation. If my parents would have made us work like that, the way that some of you are making yourselves work in your brands, working so hard, just working so hard. Like, trust me when I say that there are people here that were like how I was in 2018. And when you hear the sentence, it makes you want to cry. Okay. I know that you are working so hard. As I was working so hard when I discovered this information. And there's a time when you've got to balance it out. If my parents would have made me work that hard, because how many of you, when you work that hard, it feels boring? It's like you get this feeling in your body of like almost like panic, like, get me out of here. This is too hard. It's too challenging. Like, get me out of here. Does anyone ever feel like that when you've got a big task? I think this is very common in the world of brand building and social media, because did you know that the first 3 hours that you do anything is the hardest 3 hours that you'll ever have? And social media is changing every day. So pretty much every month, you're going to have something that feels like impossible. You got to learn fresh stuff every month. The first 3 hours of learning how to write content is the hardest 3 hours you'll ever have. The first 3 hours of making reels is going to be the hardest 3 hours you're ever going to have. The first 3 hours of learning how to do your makeup for camera are going to be the hardest first 3 hours you've ever had. So when you're building a brand, you're going to have a lot of days that are like, God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah. Okay. So take yourself back to your childhood and take yourself back to the story. What if my parents would have been like, yeah, do really hard things every weekend, new projects, a different thing. You're going to learn how to landscape this week. You're going to learn how to scrub a pool cover. You're going to learn how to detail the inside of a pool. You're going to learn how to detail lawn chairs. You're going to learn how to scrape concrete. Like, you're going to learn a new thing every weekend. It's going to be the hardest day of your life every Saturday. Okay. And what if I went from boring and panic during the day to, okay, it's the end of the day. And my parents say, good job, kid. Go watch TV. That's your reward. Go watch Netflix. I mean, essentially, unless you got a really freaking good show, you're basically going from boring to boring. Going from boring work to boring house with boring stuff and boring conversations and boring shows and a boring bedroom and a boring life and a boring closet that someday you're going to update and refresh when you make enough money. What if that's all my parents did? I would have zero work ethic today. I would hate work. And this is where a lot of you guys are landing right now, because you're going from boring to boring. Whereas in my life, I go from, okay, this is challenging. I'm doing something challenging, to opulence. It's not like, oh, this is challenging, and now, like, let me just go watch Netflix and decompress. Like, no, it goes from challenging to, holy shit, we're going to go, like, take what we made over here and go do something fun with it. I have tchotchkes all over my house because I want to wake up to opulence. I don't want to go from boring to boring. That doesn't give you sustainability in your brand. Is this clicking for you? If you go from boring to boring, you're not going to have staying power. You're going to become one of the many people that shut down within 5 years in your brand. You are not going to be a wealth accumulator when you go from boring to boring. You've got to go from, okay, this is challenging and reward. Challenge, reward. Challenge, reward. Opulence. Because when you wake up to opulence and the memories of opulence and you acclimate to opulence, the challenge feels worth it. I wake up in the morning in this room and I look around and I see a $90 robe and a $250 bag. And I see a chair that represents opulence. And I have tchotchkes and jewelry and a money tree. And like my clients bought me $2,000 worth of roses that last for over a year. And I have designer sunglasses and a designer bag. And like all these things around my room that make me feel opulent. I wake up to opulence, which makes me want to create more opulence. Opulence begets opulence. And the more wealth consciousness you have, the easier this gets. But a lot of you are in a place where you have held back on opulence for so long that even the mere thought of it makes you like, why would you, why? Like, why would you spend money to buy a money blanket? Because it's fun. Why would you spend, $5,000 or $6,000 to go stay at a hotel? Because it's opulent, because it raises the wealth consciousness, because it makes me work better, because opulence begets opulence. There's a whole conversation around this. The more opulence you put yourself around, the more opulent you become. It takes money to become opulent. It's all a circle. I'm doing an experiment right now about the more fun I have and the more opulence I have, the more money comes to me, and it's working. We're going to rewire this for you tomorrow when we talk wealth energetics, masculine, feminine, and wealth energetics. Okay. But how is this conversation landing for you today? As you're live, I want you to write down, what is your takeaway from this first day around opulence, reward? What's landing? What's shifting? Is there anything challenging you today? Because I actually want you to marinate on this overnight. Where are the places that you're currently holding back on opulence? What are the things that you've said no to yourself about this year? Because opulence and environment are everything for sustainability. You can work really hard and not reward yourself for quite a long time. You can, but it doesn't lend to sustainable wealth accumulation. So where are the places where you're telling yourself no, but there's an opportunity to beget opulence? Where's that at? I want you to deeply think about this. And I also want to invite you into an experience. So as we went on this trip, one of the reasons that we did Opulence Week is because I know that when I say yes to opulence, creativity drops in. Opulence begets opulence. Creativity, love, inspiration pops in. We went on this trip and immediately I was like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do next. I've been waiting for a fresh idea for like 3 weeks. Opulence begets inspiration, okay? So we're on this trip and I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? One of the reasons that life has worked this way and success has worked for me this way is because for the last several years, since 2019, and a little bit before that, but mostly since 2019, I've been saying yes to putting myself around a lot of opulence. Specifically, I talked about this inside of my mastermind this morning. It's like someone asked me, like, how did you learn about storytelling? And I was like, well, I only would read 7-figure copywriters, 7-figure or higher. I looked for opulence in even my copywriting. I surrounded myself by people or with people that were ahead of me in terms of opulence, not ahead of me in terms of like, oh my God, they're beating me. Like, it's not that. It's like, oh my gosh, there's opulence here. I'm tapping it. It wasn't by accident that we landed here. And even the names of things mattered. The concepts and the names of the concepts even mattered. So on this trip, I decided to curate something that's, I believe in equitable pricing. So we have a free masterclass here, and I have things all the way up to $100,000 in terms of what you can spend with me. But I created something on my trip that's called 7-Figure Secrets, because even the name triggers for you opulence. Now, I could have said social media secrets. And how does that land? Could be $5 social media secrets. It could be the social media secrets that yield $100 in sales, or it could be 7-figure secrets. And I got this way by hanging around with opulence and with 7-figure and higher conversations. So I decided to create something for the new year that's a subscription, but it's a super, super value of a price point. It's called 7-Figure Secrets. And I decided that every single month, I'm going to do a training for women who are dedicated to becoming rich. Women who want to understand business, women who want to understand social media strategy at a 7-figure level. They want to know what a 7-figure and higher earner is doing now, but they want a viable price point. So the same me that trains in my masterminds is going to be training. I'm not going to hold anything back. It's going to be extreme value. It will be open to men too, which is exciting. Tiffany just signed up this morning. And 7-Figure Secrets kicks off this November. It's a 1-year-long experience. And let me double check the pricing here, because I know Jesse just changed it. It had the same price as like something else. And I like all my prices to be different. Okay. So we have 7-Figure Secrets, and it is $76 a month, or $777 paid in full for a year, which saves you 2 months. And how this is going to land is that every single month, I'm going to do a deep dive training that could be up to 3 hours long. It's going to be a lot. And I'm going to share something that I'm doing that month from the perspective of doing the thing in business to create 7 figures. The very first training that's dropping in November is on how I grew my Facebook group, because there's some strategy for 7-figure groups. I've now had 2 different groups that yielded 7 figures in sales, and I've had multiple groups that created 6 figures in sales. So technically, I am the maker of many different 6 and 7-figure Facebook groups, and I have a way that I do it. And I have never seen anyone teach this. Out of all the wealth mentors that I've had, I've never had anyone teach the exact way that they curate their Facebook groups for 7-figure or 6-figure sales. So the very first class, in my opinion, is worth the value of a whole year. Now you're welcome to buy just that class. It is how I grow my 7-figure Facebook groups, and it is $87. So if you bought the $87 thing, you bought the first class. If you would like to, you can upgrade and jump into the entire year, and you can apply your payment towards that. You just got to message me this weekend so that Jesse can take care of you. But the first offer from my Opulence Week is this: 7-Figure Secrets, either $76 a month or $777 for an entire year. And the price on this is going up tomorrow. So you have a full 24 hours to say, fuck yes to this, and put yourself in a room where we talk opulence vibes, 7-figure strategy every single month for a year. It's the steal of a deal. Okay. So that's our very first offer. And every single day, we're going to do about an hour-long training, and there will be an offer at the end. I'll make sure that we've got links for you guys to get this. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm very excited to talk about wealth energetics. If you have a friend who you think should be here, make sure and invite them into the space. We're going to be doing a drawing for $1,111 in mentorship money at the end of our 3 days. So you can share the graphic, invite friends, tag me, let me know that you did it, and that's how your name goes in the draw. So love you guys so much. I hope this landed, and I hope to see many of you in 7-figure secrets for a year. Okay.